Hey guys, how are you doing? First of all, I want to say thank you for all the amazing feedback on the new updates to Tangent templates. We added so many things to TT. There are now gradients, there's masking, there's a whole bunch of font and typography options, including 1,500 fonts that are categorized by vibe into pairings. And there's even a style gallery in there, so you can pick some really fantastic typography. We've also added masking, which is fantastic for creating different effects. And we've added auto grid, the ability to drag and drop images from anywhere into your project. And we've updated picture book, so you can have multiple pictures on each page. Now, the last video I made was really long, and I actually had more things that I wanted to talk about and that I couldn't fit into that video. So I've got a couple of design tutorials I want to share with you. I want to talk a little bit more about placeholders because people have been asking about how placeholders work in Picture Book. And I also wanted to talk about some of the freebies that we've been adding to my Gumroad. So let's start by taking a look at my Gumroad because we have been adding so much content there. If you go to katharyne.gumroad.com, you will find everything that is on my Gumroad store. And most of it is free. There are a couple of paid products, but the majority of it is completely free. Our latest update is this one. This is a collection of two things. It has a book cover template file. So that's a TT file that you can upload to Tangent templates. And it has a Notion dashboard that is full of cover image prompts. And what these are double exposure prompts. So they're prompts for Midjourney that use the words double exposure. I created these images in Midjourney and I tested all the prompts there. But you can give them a try if you're using another platform. You can also try using the images as references on another platform. But the effect that I'm using here is called double exposure, and it works really well on Midjourney for book covers. So I think you'll get really professional results from this. And guys, have you looked at selling book covers? I'm in a lot of groups for authors and they spend a lot of money on book cover design. So if you get good at this, if you start creating some really nice looking book covers, then you could consider starting a book cover store of your own or offering book cover design to authors and writers. So there are some really nice opportunities with covers. So one of the freebies that we're offering is this collection of book covers. So you get all of these really neat book covers with nice typography. So you can take a look at them and see how they work. For example, you can click on this text and see that, okay, it has a gradient. There's the gradient there. And it has a drop shadow. You can kind of reverse engineer what I have done in these covers, and you can edit them and adapt them for whatever project you're working on. So this is a really nice collection of book cover templates that you can use for your own projects. And you do get all the Midjourney prompts. And these are the Midjourney prompts. They are in a Notion dashboard. And it's really cool because you can just browse through these and copy the prompt across into Midjourney. And they're even organized by category as well. So this is a really nice resource and absolutely free. You're just going to go to katharyne.gumroad.com and click through here. This is a really nice freebie to use with the update to Tangent templates. And by the way, some people are asking me, how do you get the update? If you have Tangent templates, it has already been rolled out to you. You should be seeing all the goodies in there now, all the gradients, the auto grid, picture book, all the new typography. It is all there right now. So if you have any problem accessing that, send me a message, support@tangent.rocks, and Isaac or I will be able to help you out. Now we have a couple of other really nice freebies on the Gumroad. This one is awesome, and I haven't really talked about this on YouTube at all, but word ladders are a really popular seller on Amazon. And a lot of people were asking me and saying, hey, Katharyne, can you make word ladders in Tangent templates? I took a look. Yes, absolutely, you can make word ladders. But here is the thing that I found really interesting. When I looked on Amazon, all of the books that I could find that were about word ladders literally had ladders on each page. They were super duper boring. But you know what? People asked me for ladder pages. So I made some ladder pages. Here is one. This is a really long word ladder. And here is another ladder page that has 6 smaller ladders on it. So these are your traditional word ladders. Another variation is to do something like this with blocks. I've just used handwriting fonts in here to make dotted letters, so this is easy to do something like this in tangent templates as well. But here's the thing. I got bored making ladder pages. I thought creating things like this was a little bit on the dull side. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, we could get more creative with this. For example, I made this castle, this tower. The way a word ladder works is that you just change a letter at a time. And you're going to change that letter, and the clue is hold your pants up. So the answer is belt. And then the next one, you change another letter, and you get melt, turn to liquid. The next clue, like burgers or sausages, meat. And then the last clue is you sit on it. So it's from meat to seat. Yes, you got it. So this is a simple word ladder. But I thought doing something like this was so much more fun. I've also got a dragon, for example. I love the garden path. It's really creative. There's a roller coaster. And you can even make word ladders out of simple shapes like hearts or cupcakes. And so what I'm doing is not only giving you this TT file with all these templates in, and there's like 24 templates and pages in here, as you can see. And I'm giving you all the templates that you see here, but also you actually get all of this clip art. So there is a ton of free clip art in this freebie. And there's also a GPT. You can use it with a free ChatGPT account, and the GPT will generate word ladders for you. Now, I've tested it really well, and I've done everything in my power to make sure it makes accurate word ladders, but always double check your word ladder before you use it. Make sure you can solve it, make sure all the clues make sense, because ChatGPT will always be ChatGPT, so you always need to check your work with AI. But it is a pretty nifty GPT. It's getting great ratings and reviews from people. So take a look at this. It is a completely free bundle of content. You get the word ladders TT file, you get all this clip art, you get the GPT. Oh, and there's also another TT file in here, which has Snowflake templates. And the Snowflake templates are actually based on content in my Edu Intel file. And a lot of you have bought Edu Intel. And guys, I am hearing from you that you absolutely love Edu Intel. And if you're not familiar with Edu Intel, it is on my Gumroad. It is a product I made a few weeks ago, and the reviews have been absolutely amazing. I basically took a ton of data from Amazon, Etsy, Teachers Pay Teachers, and Reddit. And then working with AI, I created thousands of suggestions and ideas for new products that you can create based on this data. And people have been really enjoying using it, finding all kinds of niches for new KDP books or for creating worksheets for Etsy. So that is available on my Gumroad. I'm going to flash up a coupon code right here because you can actually take $20 off this, bring the price down to $47. And if you're in one of my courses, Origins or Imagine, there's an even better coupon code in there. Or just message me and I will be able to help you out with that. The other freebie I wanted to let you know about is this one. It's the K-pop Trends Coloring Book Guide without infringement. And this is just a PDF, and again, it's completely free. And it was inspired after I watched K-pop Demon Hunters, and also after seeing that 6 out of the top 10 Halloween costumes this year, according to Google, are characters from K-pop Demon Hunters. It's a great movie. If you want a good night, do watch that movie. And I don't even normally like cartoons, but I really did enjoy that one. So I made this little book about it, and here's what's interesting. Obviously, everything in the movie is copyrighted, trademarked. It's IP. You can't infringe on any of the characters, any of the lyrics, any of the text, anything like that. But there are so many ideas in K-pop itself. And what I found really cool was that a lot of the ideas in the movie, for example, the tiger and the magpie, those are actually based on Korean folk art, which is, of course, public domain. So there's all kinds of directions you can go with that, especially if you're creating coloring books. And there are also themes in the movie that are pretty much universal themes. And I don't want to give a spoiler here, so cover your ears. One of the characters has her big comeback, and she comes back with this beautiful hairstyle with all these sparkles in her hair. So I thought that would make an amazing coloring book, just having before and after hairstyles. Because, hey, who doesn't want a comeback hairstyle after a breakup, for example, or after getting laid off from a job or something like that? Isn't that a great concept, to have the comeback hairstyle? I think that would make a fantastic coloring book. So there's all kinds of ideas like that in this PDF, the K-pop coloring book guide. So go and grab that one for free as well. Now I want to share a few more design tutorials that I couldn't fit into the last video that I made. So to start with, I'm going to send you to T-shirt Katharyne, who's going to tell you how you can put a rainbow gradient onto any image that you have created with Tangent Crystal. Here's a little bonus. I want to show you a quick and fun technique you can do with gradients. And I've seen this in a lot of coloring groups, that people enjoy coloring in an image with grayscale using grey crayons, grey pencils, and then they go around the edges to create a rainbow effect. And this is something you can actually replicate in Tangent templates with crystallized images. And I'm going to show you how I got this effect. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, draw a cute kawaii cartoon of my nifty headbutting me in the face and me rubbing my face and saying, ow. Because this is a reenactment of something that actually happened to me. My dog has a concrete head. So this is what ChatGPT came back with. Didn't like that one. I said, try again, different style, make me like a little chibi character with magenta pigtails. That was better. The only issue was the dog was saying ow. Now, it had the dog saying ow and it didn't want to fix it. So I actually uploaded it to the Midjourney editor and I asked Midjourney to fix it by moving this little speech bubble point to the side. So this was the corrected version with the speech bubble pointing that way. What I'm going to do is go to Tangent Crystal first of all, and I'm going to drag in that picture. Now, this image is going to work well because even though it's a color image, when you grayscale it, you can see it still has strong black lines around the edge. So what we want to do is adjust the brightness so that all the grays go white and we're left with the black outline. So you can see if we turn down the brightness, all the grays go black. We don't want that. So we're going to turn up the brightness. Dog's still black. Oh, it's getting better. It's getting better. Okay, now the lines start to get blurry. So let's adjust that. This looks great. I'm going to download this as a vector image. And we're going to go back to our project in Tangent template. And first, I'm going to drag in the original picture. There it is. That's the ChatGPT picture that I fixed slightly in Midjourney. And now I'm also going to add in the vector image. So we've got two images there, the vector and the color image. And what I want to do is size both of these up to the size of the project. So we're going to go to the Arrange tab. I've got the bitmap image here selected. You can see it says bitmap. And I'm going to scroll down, say full width. That makes it the full width of the page. And I'm going to center it. So now I'm going to do the same with the vector. And these are both exactly the same size. When you process the image through Tangent Crystal, it keeps the default size exactly the same. But the good thing with images that have been processed with Crystal is that you can still scale them as big as you want. They don't need to be upscaled, which is awesome. They will be pixel perfect at any size. So what I'm going to do is do the same thing with the vector. I'm going to say full width. And then I'm going to center that as well. And it's almost like it disappears because that is overlaying on top of the bitmap image. Now, there is something I forgot to do. I need to select the bitmap image. So I'm going to right click and see how it says select object when you right click. Vectors actually show up as groups because they're actually multiple images and pieces of images in one bundle. Bitmap images, they show up as image. So if I want to select the bitmap image, in other words, the color image, I'm just going to click image. And what I want to do is make that gray. So I'm going to click filters and select grayscale. Perfect. So now I'm going to send that to the back again. Now our vector is back on the top. So I'm going to select that just by clicking on it. There's our vector. And what I want to do is turn the vector into a rainbow. So this is going to be really cool. This is also a very similar technique that you will use if you're creating tracing books or ink tracing books. And those are big sellers on Amazon right now. I have another video all about creating ink tracing books with crystal and tangent templates. If you're interested in creating those kind of books, and I do recommend it because they can be niche to all kinds of things, then go watch that video. It's actually very easy to make them. But we're going to make a rainbow. So this is what we're going to do. See, we have the vector selected here. It says SVG editor. We're going to go to style, and I'm going to make sure that fill is selected because we're going to add a gradient to this. So let's do that. You can see if I go down here, I can already click it. I can make a gradient just by selecting one of the presets. So you can play with that. You can create different effects with your gradient. We want to add a rainbow. So I'm going to show you how you can make a rainbow. So first I'm going to remove the gradient there. But actually, I really like that. If I was creating a comic book or a journal, I might use that as a signature effect because I think that looks really cool. But let's continue and make a rainbow so you can see how to do that. So what I'm going to do is say add new gradient. And I'm going to go up here to the palette selector. And we'll click the palette selector and I'm going to go to themes. And you'll notice if you scroll down just a tiny bit, rainbow is actually the third theme that we have here in the palette selector. And there's plenty of other ones as well. If you want to experiment with interesting palettes, there's lots here to play with. In fact, the urban graffiti would be really good for this as well. So let's choose rainbow. I'm going to say use that palette, and you can see it's added it here underneath the base colors. And because we're doing a rainbow, we're going to want more than 2 colors. I don't know, we could do 5, we could do 7. Let's add 3 more. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors. And I'm going to make these rainbow colors. So I'm just going to click each circle. We'll make that one red. And we'll make this one purple. This one blue. This one green. And this one yellow. And in fact, I think I'm going to add one more. And I'm going to make that one orange. Just to add a little bit more color to that. Isn't that fun? So now I can adjust the angle if I want. So you can experiment with how that looks, which colorway you like. I think that looks really cute actually, having it like that. Let's try that, just because I want those white circles on the dog's eyes to stand out. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. But I want to make this pop just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is scroll down here and I'm going to add a drop shadow. So we'll say drop shadow. It defaults to gray. I think it would look nice with a pink shadow. So let's experiment with that. Let's do pink. All right, I like how that looks. I'm going to just move that around a little bit. Let's see. I want to put it on that side of the image and bring it down a little bit for a 3D look. How is that? And there we go. There is an image that pops. That is how you can add a rainbow layer to any image pretty much. If you're using Tangent Crystal, you're going to want to generate an image like this that has strong black lines. I hope you enjoy experimenting and getting creative with this. Now I want to show you something else really cool with gradients. So one of the things I talked about in my previous video was using patterns. So we have all these cool patterns in Tangent templates. And these are really fun because what you can do is take any pattern and you'll see here, if I click on it and look at the colors, it has the different colors that are in this pattern. And of course, you can change these. You can make them any color you want and get very different effects and styles with those. So that's how it looks if we change the colors. And you can use the group color changer, which is really fun. I love the group color changer. You can get different effects by shifting through patterns there. You can experiment with that, get very different palettes, try different things. So you can make a lot of different styles out of any particular pattern. Whoa, all of a sudden we're at the overlook. Amazing. So you can create very different effects from the same pattern. But you can do something even more fabulous with patterns. So let's try a different one. I'm going to go to patterns again. And I'm going to pick this one here. And this is actually such a great pattern. If we just change that, for example, and we change color 2 and do something like purple, we get a very different vibe there. So you can play all day with changing pattern colors in tangent templates. I love playing with this. But here's something really awesome. If you scroll down, you can actually add a gradient to this pattern. I'm going to try one of the system patterns. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. So you get a very different effect when you add a gradient to a pattern. But I want to show you a trick. What I found makes a big difference when you're playing with patterns and gradients. Let's make this purple, for example. This is what makes a difference. If you go up here and select a border and add a border to this, now you can see the pattern better. So I'm actually going to adjust the thickness on that border so it's a bit clearer. And I'm going to turn off the margins actually so you can see it better. I've found that adding borders to patterns really makes them pop. And you can experiment with different colors as well. All kinds of different things you can try by adding borders to patterns. I think that looks awesome. And you can customize the colors of the gradients. So for example, let's try making this, I want a blue color. Let's see how this looks if we add some blue to this and we add some pink to this. And I'm going to make the border dark. Let's give that a dark purple. I think that looks fabulous. It looks worlds away from the pattern that we started with. And you can do this with any of the patterns that are built into tangent templates. You can get some incredible effects. And look, you can change the angle around on this. If you like that look better, you can do that. You can edit the gradient like that, so you can have more blue, less pink. And if you want to get really experimental, you can try a radial gradient as well. So several different effects you can get with gradients. And then watch this. If I put some shapes over the top, so let's put some hearts on here. I'm just going to copy and paste a few hearts. And you can cheat and use AutoGrid. Check this out. If I select them all and unselect the background, I can actually use AutoGrid and put them in a grid design so they're spaced out a bit. And then we can move them around like this to create something more interesting. Let's change the sizes slightly. There we go. And we'll move that one over here, make this one bigger. And now watch this. If I select all of these hearts, and I'm going to hold down Shift and unselect the background, so I've just got the hearts selected. Now I can go to Style, and I can add a gradient to all of these hearts. Nice! But what'll look even better is if I give them a border too. So I'm going to select Border, make it black, scroll down, and thicken that border. Actually, what I want to do is make the border purple, so it blends in nicely with the background. And if I want to get crazy, I can also add a drop shadow to that. I'm going to make my drop shadow. Actually, I'm going to select the same purple for the drop shadow. So we get this 3D effect. And you can move the drop shadow around like that as well. Now you get this awesome 3D effect as well. And I'm just going to adjust my gradient a little, make it a bit brighter, maybe a bit more metallic. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that dark grey. You can create all kinds of awesome designs for your book covers, for flyers, for worksheets, whatever you are creating. You can make these fantastic looking designs with gradients and using the patterns in tangent templates, it's really unique. There isn't really any other tool that works quite like this. It allows you to get really neat effects really very easily and quickly. We've also been getting a lot of questions about placeholders in PictureBook, so I wanted to just touch on those again and show another quick example of how you can use placeholders. So I actually have a folder of images that I generated in Midjourney. They're just cute cartoon manga style images. So I have 8 images, and I did rename them 1 to 8 because I want them to be in a particular order. So I'm going to drop those onto the page so you can see what those images look like. There we go. And these images are different sizes. You can see some are portrait, some are landscape, and I've kind of mixed that up. So let's say we want to make a book and we have these images with different sizes. What happens, I'm going to delete these, if we make placeholders that are squares? Let's see what it does. So I'm going to create a box. And a placeholder is basically a box. So we're going to make a box and it has to have a fill. The fill can be any color, but your box needs a fill. So let's make 4 of these boxes. So we'll just copy and paste those. And I can actually use auto grid to make sure they're nice and even. There they are. And now I'm going to add 4 more boxes underneath and make those smaller. So let's bring those down. And this is really cool. If you select all of these and go to auto grid, you can say put these in a single row. There we go. And maybe we want to stretch this out just a little bit more. And I'm just going to bring those out so they line up. Great. Okay, so now we have 8 squares on the page. So let's imagine that we have a picture book and each page is going to look like this. So what we can do is go to Picture Book and we're going to select the new folder of all the images. So there's 8 images in our folder. And if we had 16 images in this folder, it would create 2 pages for us. If we had 24 images, it would create 3 pages because it's going to put 8 pictures on each page. But we're just going to do 1 page and keep it simple. Now, this is going to default to putting 1 image on a page. So it says 7 new pages will be created. So we have to set a page template. So I'm going to click Page Template, and we're going to use this page, page 1, as our template. And we're going to select both of these boxes, Copy Template to Existing Pages. So if we were working on more pages, this would use this same template throughout the book. And this is the important one. So these are our placeholder boxes. And it says there's 8 boxes found with this color. So yes, we want the blue boxes to act as our placeholders. And it's important that all the placeholders are the same color. That means that if there's any boxes on here that are part of your design and a different color, that those won't be affected. So it's up to you to choose a unique color for your placeholder boxes. I've chosen blue. So now we're ready to import our images. And you can see it's only going to update 1 page because we only have 8 images and there are 8 boxes. So it's just going to make this 1 page. But what I want to show you is how it works with different sized images. So remember, we have some landscape images, some portrait images, and I have square boxes. So I'm going to hit Import Images, and what you can see is it actually does its best to fit those into the squares. So with portrait images, it actually stretches to the maximum height. With landscape, it stretches to the maximum width that is allowed in those square boxes. So I think they look great. That is how PictureBook works. You can build an entire book with this method. So you can upload a bundle of images, make sure they're in the right order. I always rename them 1, 2, 3 so that they are in the right order, because PictureBook will fill it out from left to right, top to bottom. So make sure your images are in the right order. But this is so powerful. So you can put all your illustrations into your book in one go in the right places. I think it's awesome. The last thing I wanted to share with you is how you can make stationery super quickly with the new gradients and masking. And I just wanted to share this because I posted it in our KDP group and people were like, wow, this is cool. How did you do it? So I wanted to show how quickly you can make stationery in tangent templates. And these could be pages in a journal or in a planner or in a workbook. Of course, you can adapt them for whatever you want. But also it's really flexible because I'm just going to use one image. So this is the image that I'm going to use. It's a cherry image and it's actually a tileable pattern, but it doesn't really have to be. I just used that because I wanted something that felt like a pattern. I prompted beautiful cherry pattern, and this aspect ratio here, 17:22, is actually the aspect ratio for a US letter size. And if you don't like math, then just ignore this for a moment. It's because US letter size is 8.5 by 11. So if you're going to put this into Midjourney, Midjourney doesn't accept decimal points, so you can't put 8.5 by 11. So what you can do if you don't want to do any complicated math is just multiply everything up by 10. So 8.5 by 11 is 85 to 110. So I tend to do that when I have decimal points because it's just quick and easy. But a better ratio is actually to just multiply them both by 2. So 8.5 times 2 is 17 and 11 times 2 is 22. So basically, if you want to create an image that will fit into a US letter size, either put the aspect ratio as 85 to 110 or make it 17 to 22. They're both the same thing. And the EXP30 is an experimental parameter. And I love to use it. I found that adding a little bit of experimental weight to your images can really improve the aesthetic of them. So I tend to use it. You can ignore it if you want, but it takes any number between 0 and 100. And I find around 30 to 40 to be a really nice sweet spot to add to your prompts. And then I used a style reference as well. And the style reference was actually another image that I generated. And this is actually the original image that I used as a style reference. And the prompt was 2 pink cherries with green leaves, each cherry made of red and silver disco ball pieces on a light pastel background in the style of Lisa Frank with sparkles. It's a weird prompt and I don't remember how I came up with it. I may have come up with it myself. I may have adapted it from something in a gallery. I don't know. But this was the prompt I started with and then used it to experiment and create more cherry images like these. And this is how I like to work in Midjourney. I tend to use a lot of references, so I'll make an image that I like and then I'll use that as a style reference for another image, or even use multiple style references. So a lot of the time I focus on using style references, and I have other resources about code style references. In fact, I have a whole book of them that's free on my Gumroad. And I use other images as style references and often blend them. So for me, Midjourney is becoming less about text prompts. I find it's not about having the perfect text prompt. It's more about using good style references, whether they're codes or whether they're images, and blending those. So we ended up with this image. We started with this one here, and then I used that as a style reference to get this image. And then I used that image as a style reference to get this one here. So it's actually an image from an image from an image. That's kind of how I work with Midjourney. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's just an organic process of discovery and experimentation. And really, that's how you're going to get the best results from a tool like Midjourney, by playing and by experimenting. If you have a very rigid brief that you want to meet, then use something like Google Gemini. If you want something very specific and that's going to follow your prompt exactly, look at Gemini, look at ChatGPT. But if you are creating and you want to make something artistic, then Midjourney has this amazing creative discovery flow to it that I absolutely love. So I'm going to upscale this image by clicking Subtle Upscale. Here it is in my Midjourney gallery, so I'm just going to go and download the upscaled image there, and I'm going to drag and drop that into Tangent Templates. And we're going to work with this image. So I'm going to create a couple of duplicate pages so we can play with this. And I'm also going to turn off margins, and I'm going to make this image bigger so we can work with it. So full width and center, and it fits on the page because we used the correct aspect ratio. So first thing I want to do is I actually want to cut out this cherry because it's really cute. So I'm going to use a shape, and I'm going to get a heart, and we're just going to put the heart over that cherry. So we're going to cover up the cherry completely with the heart, and then I'm going to just select both the image and the heart. I'm going to go to the Arrange tab, scroll down, and click Standard. And that has masked the image onto the heart, which looks really cute. And you can add a drop shadow to this. So if I go to Image, and it's given me an image size warning, but I'm not worried about that because I'm actually going to make this a little bit smaller. Now, the only thing I find a little annoying, and we don't have a solution for this yet, is that the bounding box around the mask is the size of the original image. But it's not a big deal. As long as you're aware of that, you can just work with it that way. So now we have this cool image that's like a sticker almost of a heart. And a couple of things you can do with this. You can add a drop shadow. So if you want to add a drop shadow, make sure you have the image selected. You're in the bitmap editor. You can scroll down and you can add a drop shadow. And you can make the drop shadow any color you want. So we can actually select a color from the image if we want. So we can choose a red that actually matches the image and do something like that. Or we can make it black or dark like that. So you can make any kind of drop shadow to go with this. In fact, I'm thinking about making it blue. You can also change the drop shadow. So if you make it blurry, you kind of get a glow. Or if you make it without any blur, it becomes very solid. So you can experiment with that as well. So I like adding drop shadows to things. I think you get a good effect there. At the moment, you can't add a border to a masked image. We haven't added that functionality. But what you can do, if I take the shadow off, you can actually add another shape that's the same. So we have this heart. We can actually make this a similar size. In fact, I'll send it backwards so we can play with that. Yeah, that looks cool. And if you get lost with your layers, you can right click and then you can say which object you want to select. So the image is the bitmap image, that's the cherry image there. The SVG is the heart, that's the vector image. So we could actually change this. We can make the heart red, for example, or we could even do something like that and then send that to the back. So at the moment, we don't have an option for a border, but you can kind of get your own effect by adding an image behind it. And in fact, I'm just going to make this red. So I'm going to get rid of the gradient and make that red. Perfect. So you could use this to make a card. You can resize that, stretch it out, do something like that. You can also resize it down, and if you group that, now you can actually create several of them and put them on your page, and even make stickers or just cute decorations for a page like that. And if you want to get really cute, we can add a background and we can add a gradient for our background. So I'm going to make that grey. I'm going to choose the red. And I'm going to make this grey white. There we go. And I'm going to put a lot more white on this than grey. And I'm going to reduce the amount of red on this, increase the amount of white, and you can turn these around to get different angles. So this would be really fun if you're making like insert pages for a kid's book or something like that. So that's really fun. And if we add a blank page, then we could do something like this. So if we use the rocket ship, and I'm going to make graph paper, so I'm just going to go to templates and select 4x4 graph paper. Perfect. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to make the color red, and I'm going to thicken that so you can see it better on the screen. So now we have this cool red graph paper, and I can actually go back and grab one of these hearts, copy that, And then on the graph paper page, we can paste that in. And I'm going to ungroup this. I don't want that red background, so I'm going to ungroup it. And I'm going to delete the red background. And I'm going to add a drop shadow to that. And I think I want to make my drop shadow pink. Let's adjust that. There we go, something like that. So I can put the image up there, and we can add some text. So if I say notes, I can then go to type, and let's pick something from our style gallery. So I'm going to choose this one, strong red lines, and blam, we already have a really nice notes style there that we can use. And I don't think the blue goes perfectly with what we're doing, so we can just adjust that gradient. So I can change that blue, make it pink, and I can adjust the drop shadow as well, make it closer to that color. So this is looking great now. If I want to, I can add a box. I'm going to add some fill to that, make it white. I'm going to make my border red. Thicken that. And add a corner radius so it's nice and curved. And then we can make this bigger. And we can add this to the bottom of our page. And then copy and paste this and say to-do list and make it smaller. And then I'm just going to reduce the thickness of the border a little bit on that as well. So it all looks nice and clean. So that's a fun stationery page that you can include. And one more thing you can do, again, let's make this the full width, full height of the page, is you can add a big box to this. So there's our box. We're going to make the fill white so we can see it. We can make the box bigger, like that. Okay, and I'm just going to center it there. And then we can fill this space. I'm going to fill it with wide rule paper. And if you select that, you can see the color here. It's made the lines gray. We don't want them to be gray. We want red lines. And I'm just going to make sure I've just got the lines selected. I'm going to unselect everything else, the box and the image in the background. So now I'm just selecting the lines. And these are actually grouped. You can see that because on the Style tab, it says ungroup. So if you want to delete a line, for example, at the top, you can actually ungroup those, and then you can delete individual lines. So I'm going to select those again, unselect the box and the image, because what I want to do is actually thicken the lines a little bit. So you just have to have the lines selected if you want to thicken them. We can put some text here that says notes. We can make that the same red. And we can drag that up there. And then we can go back to our hearts, grab one of these, copy it, and paste it onto the page here. Just like that. So now you have a really, really cute note page. And we've made all of these different things just from this one Midjourney image. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some really fun ideas. I hope you're enjoying designing with all the new features. Please keep giving us feedback. We love making tangent templates the best tool it can possibly be. All right guys, have a good one. Bye.